Peace be upon you, my friend. I am Sheikh Yusuf, the Life Strategist, and today I am going to share a truth that will likely terrify your accountant, confuse your peers, and cause your ego to tremble in a state of absolute cognitive dissonance. But it is the one truth that separates the men who merely survive from the men who dominate the marketplace with absolute authority. I am telling you now, with the weight of 50 years of strategic observation and the wisdom of the early teachers, to stop saving your money. I know this sounds like madness in an age of global uncertainty and economic volatility, but as a life strategist who has spent a lifetime decoding the ancient teachings of the most successful merchant dynasties in history, I have seen with my own eyes that the act of saving is the primary ritual of the poverty mindset. You have been systematically taught by institutions that profit from your stagnation and your fear that the secret to long-term security is to take your currency and hide it in a box, to let it sit in a digital vault where it remains motionless, cold, and biologically dead. But wealth, in its true architectural form, is not a solid, static object. It is a liquid. It is a frequency of constant, purposeful movement. And the moment you try to trap it in a state of saving for the sake of safety, you are violating the most fundamental unspoken law of sustained provision, the law of circulation. For decades, I have watched men of high potential struggle to build empires while clutching their small coins with white-knuckled biological fear. They think they are being responsible and mature, but they are actually broadcasting a frequency of extreme lack to the administrative forces of the universe. By saving out of a fear-based projection of a rainy day, you are literally writing a formal invitation for the storm to arrive at your doorstep. You are telling your subconscious mind and the internal witness that you do not trust the future, and what you do not trust you can never truly command or expand. The ancient wise men, the ones who built cities in the desert and established trade routes that lasted 1,000 years, understood that money is like water. If it flows with direction, it stays fresh. It powers the great mills of industry. It feeds the crops of the next generation, and it sustains civilizations. But if it stops moving, if it is hoarded in a dark hole, it becomes a breeding ground for the bacteria of anxiety, the disease of hesitation, and the slow decay of inflation. Your stagnant savings are the biological and financial equivalent of a muddy, fly-ridden hole in the sand. The provision is there, yes, but it has no life force in it. It cannot grow because it is not being challenged by the marketplace. The life strategist does not seek to store wealth like a squirrel hiding a nut. He seeks to steer wealth like a captain commanding a fleet. He understands that the universe is an endless, vibrant grid of high-voltage movement, and the infinite only funds that which is in a state of ordered, disciplined activity. If you want to move from the restricted life of a hoarder to the dominant life of a multiplier, you must first dismantle the psychological anchor of the safety net. When you put money away because you are afraid of being poor, you are anchoring your very identity in the frequency of poverty. You are performing a daily ritual that reinforces the belief, I might lose everything, so I must hide this. This persistent fear triggers a specific stress response in your nervous system, raising your cortisol levels and narrowing your cognitive vision. In this state of biological poverty, your brain literally enters survival mode. When you are in survival mode, you cannot see the $10 million opportunity standing right in front of you, because your internal radar is only calibrated to protect the $10,000 you have hidden in your box. You have traded your visionary edge for a safety blanket, and the cost of that trade is the empire you will never build. The elite merchants who ran the great caravans of the East never looked at their gold as something to be kept in a cellar. They looked at it as sustenance for the movement. They knew that every coin must be working or it was a psychological liability. This brings us to the first pillar of our multiplication strategy, the law of velocity. In the ancient teachings, we learn that the true value of a resource is not determined by its quantity, but by the speed at which it moves through a cycle of value. Imagine two different men. One has $1 million sitting in a vault for an entire year. The other has only $10,000. But he moves that money through 10 different value-producing transactions in that same year. By the end of the journey, the man with the $10,000 has created more relationships, solved more problems, gained more market data, and ultimately generated more sustained provision than the man with the motionless million. The man with the vault has ownership, but the man with the movement has stewardship. The infinite always funds the steward because the steward is a high capacity channel for circulation. If you want to receive money immediately, you must stop the constipation of your capital. You must find a path for it to move back into the world as an investment in value. This does not mean spending on the vanities of the ego. It means deploying your soldiers into the field. The second pillar of our architecture is the law of the vessel's upgrade. Most of you are trying to multiply your money while your internal vessel, your skills, your character, and your biological discipline is still in a state of absolute mediocrity. You are asking for a bigger harvest while your soil is depleted of nutrients. Instead of saving your money to earn a measly 3% interest in a bank that uses your money to get rich while you stay poor, you should be consuming that money to upgrade your own internal value. I have sat in the private majlis of billionaires who would spend $50,000 in a single afternoon just to be in a room with a man who possessed a single piece of ancient wisdom or a specific strategic perspective they lacked. They were not spending money, they were liquidating currency to acquire capital. You must understand the difference. Currency is temporary and subject to the whims of the state. Capital is permanent and resides in the man. When you invest in your own mastery, when you pay for the highest level of mentorship, when you buy the cleanest biological fuel to keep your mind sharp, and when you pay to create an ordered environment, you are increasing your internal multiplier. A man who is 10% more disciplined and 20% more knowledgeable does not just make 30% more money, enters a completely different tax bracket, because his frequency has shifted from the noise to the signal. The provision of the world is forced to find him because he is now a high-pressure path for wealth. Stop saving for a future that you are not biologically or intellectually prepared to lead. Spend your current provision to build the man who can handle 100 times more without cracking under the pressure. The third pillar is the law of strategic circulation and the three containers. In the timeless wisdom of the early teachers, we find the rule of asset allocation that governed the Silk Road. They taught that a man should never have all his resources in one state of being. He should have 1/3 in land, immovable stability, 1/3 in commerce, active movement, and 1/3 in hand, readiness for the kill. Notice very carefully that none of these containers are for saving in the modern fear-based sense. In hand did not mean hiding money under a mattress. It meant being in a state of high alert readiness for an opportunity. When you circulate your wealth into tangible assets and value-producing ventures, you are creating what I call a web of provision. You are no longer dependent on a single digital number in a bank account. You are anchored in the physical world and the laws of consequence. I once knew a merchant who was obsessed with the number. He wanted to see a certain amount of zeros in his ledger every night. He lived like a beggar, ate poor food, and neglected his family just to save every cent. He didn't upgrade his home. He didn't invest in his health, and he didn't help his community. He was a dead end for wealth. When the market shifted, as it always does, his number stayed the same for a while. But the value of his life evaporated instantly. He had no relationships to call upon because he had been stingy. He had no upgraded skills to pivot into the new economy. He had no biological stamina to fight the crisis because his body was weak from years of saving on his own nutrition. He had saved himself into a corner of extinction. But his competitor, a man who understood the Life Strategist path, had spent those same years moving his money. He had built a sanctuary of a home that attracted high-level partners who wanted to be in his presence. He had invested in the best teachers and the most advanced systems. He had circulated his wealth into the lives of others, creating a human shield of loyalty and reciprocity. When that same market shift happened, this man didn't just survive, he multiplied his reach. His web of provision caught the new opportunities that the hoarder couldn't even see through his fog of fear. To reach the true depth of this strategy, we must examine the biology of the purse. When you hoard money, your body remains in a state of constant. If you observe yourself, you will notice that when you think about your savings, you often hold your breath. This physical contraction limits the oxygen flow to your brain and stifles the flow of intuition. But when you move your money with calculated, disciplined boldness, your body enters a state of expansion. You are operating from the alpha frequency. In this state, you can hear the unspoken rules of a negotiation. You can sense the scent of multiplication in the air. This is why I say, stop saving. The contraction of saving is killing your genius. You need to breathe. You need to let the currency move so that you can remain in a state of creative power. The merchant's meditation of the flow is a practice I have used for 40 years. Every time money leaves my hand, whether it is paying an employee, buying a property, or giving to the needy, I do not feel a sense of loss. I do not feel a dent in my security. Instead, I feel a sense of planting. I say to myself, I am circulating this value into the world, and by the immutable law of the harvest, it must return to me with interest, because I am an ordered and worthy steward. This mindset removes the biological tax of anxiety and replaces it with the biological interest of expectation. Expectation is a magnetic force that pulls provision toward you. A man who expects multiplication because he has followed the laws of circulation is a man who cannot be stopped by any government or any economy. Let us also speak of the law of the 10th vessel as it applies to this multiplication. Multiplication is not just a mathematical phenomenon, it is a biological and spiritual one. It requires a sacred interrupt to the ego. When you take a portion of your income and immediately circulate it back to the source by helping those in your inner circle or building institutions of order, you are priming the pump of your own life. You are proving to the administrative forces of the universe that you are not a reservoir that gets full and then becomes stagnant, but a conduit that can handle an infinite high-pressure flow. The man who says, I will give and I will invest when I have more, is a liar to his own soul and a fool to the strategist. If you cannot circulate from your $10, you will never be allowed to manage 10 million. The infinite is the ultimate strategist. He does not waste capital on plugged pipes. Clear your pipes today. Move the money. Feed the flow. To truly dominate your niche and send your legacy to the moon, you must understand the psychology of the sovereign. A slave saves his crumbs to buy a day of rest. A king circulates his gold to expand his influence. Which identity are you operating from? If you are saving every penny in a state of worry, you are telling the world that you are still a subject of your circumstances. You are waiting for permission to live. But the life strategist grants himself permission through his own discipline. He knows that his sustained provision is guaranteed by his adherence to the laws of value and order. He doesn't need a safety net because he is the architect of the building. If the building falls, he simply picks up his tools and builds a larger one. This inner certainty is the only true wealth that exists. Everything else is just paper and pixels. It is what allows you to stop saving and start dominating. Most people wait for the harvest to arrive at their door before they decide to move. But the strategist moves with the harvest. He is always planting the next field while he is reaping the current one. This requires a level of multitasking of the soul that fear-based saving simply doesn't allow. Saving is a stop command to your spirit. Circulation is a go command. When you are always in a state of go, you are always in the path of the next miracle. I have seen men turn $100 into 100,000 in a single year, not through the gamble of a desperate man, but through the velocity of a strategist. They moved that $100 so fast through so much value that the multiplication was forced to happen by the law of physics. They didn't have time to save. They were too busy building. Let us also address the environment of stagnation. If you are surrounded by people who spend their weekends talking about saving for retirement, you are sitting in a graveyard of ambition. Retirement is a modern industrial invention designed to make you a compliant, low-energy consumer for 40 years so that you can rest when you are too old to enjoy it. The life strategist never retires. He only refines. His work is his life's expression, and his life's expression is his work. His wealth is a tool for his purpose, and his purpose has no expiration date. When you stop saving for a departure, you start investing for an arrival. You are arriving at the highest version of yourself every single day. This is the frequency that attracts the most powerful partners, the most loyal employees, and the most lucrative deals. High-level people want to be around a man who is ascending with momentum, not a man who is hoarding for the descent. Now we must speak of the internal witness and the act of deployment. Your subconscious is always watching your financial behavior. When you save in a way that feels like hiding, your subconscious labels you as weak and at risk. But when you deploy money, even when it feels uncomfortable, your subconscious labels you as powerful and in control. This change in internal labeling shifts your body language, your tone of voice, and your decision-making speed. You literally walk differently when you are a multiplier than when you are a hoarder. The marketplace senses this shift immediately. They see a man who is not afraid of the future, and they want to put their resources in his hands. This is the ultimate multiplication hack that the banks don't want you to know. Your confidence in circulation creates more wealth than any interest rate ever could. In the ancient trade routes, a merchant did not judge his success by the gold he made in a single day, but by the quality of the grain he was moving. He knew that gold could be stolen or devalued, but flow was a fundamental of reality. If you have flow, you have life. If you have flow, you have power. You must become a man of flow. You become this man by mastering the small, unspoken laws that the masses ignore in their quest for security. The act of stopping your saving and starting your multiplication is your daily declaration of sovereignty. It is your connection to the ancient merchants who built the world through the law of velocity. I have given you the strategy. I have given you the biological mechanics. I have given you the history. Now you must provide the will to act. Go and look at your stagnant swamps. Drain them. Turn them into flowing rivers of value and investment. The source is ready to provide an infinite stream, but that stream needs a channel that is open and moving. Make your life that channel. In order to truly anchor this frequency, we must discuss the psychological wall of the 1 million. Many men reach a certain level of savings, perhaps 100,000 or 1 million, and they stop. They become terrified to touch that number. They treat it like a holy relic rather than a tool. This is where the multiplication dies. The strategist knows that 1 million is just a larger seed. If you do not plant it, it will eventually dry up. You must have the courage to redeploy your largest wins. This is how you move from a millionaire to a billionaire. You never allow yourself to feel safe in a static number. You only feel safe in your ability to generate and circulate. This is the merchant's edge. It is the ability to walk away from a pile of gold to go and build a mountain of value. We must also speak of the law of the hidden hand in deployment. When you begin to move your money, do not announce it to the world. Do not post your investments on social media. Do not tell your neighbors about your new ventures. Move in silence. The eye of judgment cannot restrict what it cannot see. By circulating your wealth quietly, you are allowing it to take root without the environmental pressure of envy. You are building in the shadows so that your fortress is unattackable when it finally surfaces. This is the path of the elite. This is how the great dynasties remain at the top for centuries. They are ghosts in the marketplace, but their influence is everywhere. You are becoming a ghost. You are becoming a master of the hidden flow. I want you to look at your life as a series of cycles. Every 30 days, your biological capital resets. Every 30 days, your financial cycle resets. If you are not increasing your velocity with each cycle, you are decaying. There is no middle ground in the laws of provision. You are either a channel for more or a reservoir for less. Choose to be the channel. Choose to be the man who moves with the speed of the Creator. This is the highest form of worship and the highest form of strategy. When you align your commerce with the movements of the universe becomes your silent partner. It opens doors you didn't even know existed. It connects you with people who possess the resources you need. It provides the wind for your sails. But the wind only helps the ship that is actually moving. If you are anchored in the harbor of savings, the wind does nothing for you. Raise the sails. Pull up the anchor. Move into the deep water. The harvest is waiting for the one who has the courage to leave the shore. To further cement this law, realize that your internal architecture is the only thing you truly own. The money can be taken by force, by law, or by time. But your discipline, the internal salt, is permanent. If you focus 90% of your energy on building that internal salt, you will always be the wealthiest man in the room, regardless of what the bank statement says. And because you are the wealthiest man in spirit, the physical gold will have no choice but to gravitate toward you. This is the true law of attraction that the life strategist masters. It is not a wish, it is a weight. Be a man of weight. Be a man of substance. Stop the rituals of the poor. Stop the begging prayers and start the building protocols. The infinite is a strategist of order. He created the stars in their courses and the seasons in their turn. If you want the infinite to provide for you, you must imitate his order and his movement. This is the final realization of our session today. You were not created to live a life of desperation or static safety. You were designed to be a representative of abundance. You were given the ability to choose between the contraction of fear and the expansion of strategy. Choose expansion, choose circulation, choose the path of the multiplier. I want you to perform a simple yet powerful ritual tonight. Go to your bank account and identify one amount that has been sitting stagnant. It could be $100 or 10,000. Decide right now exactly where that money will be deployed tomorrow morning to increase your value or the value of your kingdom. Do not wait. Do not overthink. Just move. The moment you make that decision, you have broken the spell of the hoarder. You have reclaimed your sovereignty. You have signaled to the provider that you are ready for more. This is the first movement of the king. It is the act that triggers the landslide of provision. I want you to go into the comments section right now and write these words. I am a channel of circulation. By writing this, you are locking in your commitment to move from a frequency of fear to a frequency of power. You are telling the world, your subconscious and the eye of judgment, that you are no longer a vessel of stagnation, but a vessel of multiplication. You are taking your first strategic step toward a legacy that will stand for 1,000 years. Subscribe to this sanctuary of wisdom, because next week I'm going to teach you the law of the invisible ally, the specific way you must identify the people who are destined to help you build your fortress, and how to spot the ones who are destined to drain it. Remember that the infinite does not judge your current bank balance. He judges your discipline and your movement. If you are motionless, you are invisible to provision. If you are moving with order, purpose, and circulation, you are a beacon for abundance that cannot be ignored. Your soul is the blueprint, and your life is the construction. Do not let the architect of fear design your bank account any longer. Let the architect of strategy take the lead today. Clean the swamp of your stagnant savings. Open the gates of your financial sanctuary. Let the currency flow through you into a world that is starving for value. Your transformation is not an event. It is a series of strategic movements, and your next movement starts the moment you stop hiding and start deploying. Make it a move of sovereignty. Make it a move of multiplication. Make it a move of dignity. I look forward to hearing of your progress in the sessions to come. Stay sharp, stay disciplined, and above all, stay in motion. The world belongs to the ones who flow with the frequency of the provider. The provision is infinite. Your courage to move is the only limit. Do not hesitate. The marketplace waits for no man. Construct your empire with the tools of the wise. Peace be upon you, and may your path be one of absolute clarity and victory. Sheikh Yusuf, signing off.